Hello and welcome to the AEW Full Gear 2024 review. I'm Michael Sidgwick, joined by Michael Hamflett to discuss everything that went down on Saturday's show. But before we get into it, if you're a fan of this sort of thing, make sure to subscribe to WhatCulture Wrestling on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, and YouTube for daily wrestling podcasts where we preview and review Raw, SmackDown, the show formerly known as NXT 2.0, Dynamite, Collision, pay-per-views, premium live events. We have wrestler interviews on occasion, roundtable discussions, question and answer time. And we host, complete with a bloody good quiz, of course, a roundup of the week on WhatCulture. Hamflett, Full Gear, go to the Turcarino or somewhere in between.
Somewhere in between. Just all right, you know. I went into... Do you know what happened? Quick story, because we were saying different things in this same studio.
Yes.
I went into Friday's WhatCulture, covering for Phil, doing the usual, it's AEW. Oh, Mr. Reliable, when the red light's on the pay-per-view skis. And then I listened to another excellent wrestling podcast, the WhatCulture Wrestling podcast, for your takes on it, because we hadn't had like that last minute over the desks Friday crack. And I was like, Sidge is always right. And your take was... they might be running out of road with the old pay-per-views, getting them out of trouble. And it landed right square in the middle, like bang in the middle. It would be outright bad faith to call this a disaster. It would also be grifting. What's it called? Not positive. What's it called?
Toxic positivity.
Thank you. To call this like one of them all-timers. I would argue that AEW probably got the pay-per-view it deserved on the merit of the booking. Dynamite's not been a disaster, but it's not been peak tier AEW. And that was this pay-per-view. I'm
probably a lot higher on this than you were, because I think the main takeaway I had from Full Gear 2024 is that there are certain wrestlers who needed a very good to great night. And I think the ones who really needed it came through with one pretty humiliating exception. And there were wrestlers who I've been low on. There were wrestlers who have put a lot of pressure on themselves, even more so than the typical main event face role, which is, a big thing to execute at the best of times. And I thought the people who needed it the most really came through with an excellent night. It was long, it was baggy, it was occasionally seminal. That is the AEW thing now. That is the AEW pay-per-view thing. On the atmosphere and your take that they got the pay-per-view that the build merited. Again, I'm higher on it, but I think you stumbled upon something with the atmosphere there. I very much felt like a weird dissonance when you saw just how many people were there. It took these fans a while to get into the matches. It was as if they were kind of sat there, arms folded, go on, impress me. Yeah. I'm not going to automatically do cartwheels at the idea of this match graphic because I haven't been into the story. I'm going to be quiet at the start, impress me. And then, much like myself, I felt like my personal take on this pay-per-view mirrored the reaction of the crowd, where it was like, go on, impress me. I'm not in the best mood, to be fair. Go on, impress me. And I almost begrudgingly got really into some, if not a lot of these matches. We don't typically go and do any sort of watching of the pre-shows. I think they're a waste of time, but it would be remiss of us not to talk about the talking point coming out of Full Gear, which is probably strange. Big Boom AJ defeats QT Marshall in a tremendous bit of fun. So the story is that Big Boom AJ surprises QT Marshall, who was a little bit livid, who cuts him off. It's every United States wrestling match you've ever seen from about 20 years ago, 30 years ago, even some worked punches, some heel cut-offs, like a knowing version of that kind of match. Of course, the heat wasn't earnest. I think they pitched it perfectly with one exception. The basic result is that Big Justice does something you could call a spear on QT Marshall after Aaron Solo attempted to interfere. Equalizing the odds was Big Justice, allowing Big Boom AJ to hit the power boom and score the win. Decent power bomb as well. Nice steak as well.
He knew he had it in his locker because he set it up, didn't he? He told us it was coming.
He set it up. I've got one complaint about this entire thing, right? And it was, what have I written down on my notes? Piss off Paul White. Because QT Marshall goes up to the timekeepers area, and I'm thinking, this is where the Rizzler, a little guy, hasn't done anything yet. Oh, come on, you know what's going to be great.
There's a little guy in there.
My kids are obsessed with the Rizzler.
Uh-huh.
No, James does the face now.
On the off chance there was a camera on him, Rizzler was like, just like...
Yeah, absolutely.
In his eye spots, doesn't he? Every time.
Absolutely loves it. He's a kid's pro.
Yeah.
Kid's a pro. I love how overjoyed the commentators were with how over the Rizzler was.
Yeah.
That was just a nice touch. I mean, he's just got this brand. He's got this brand that people are just drawn to. The Rizzler. It's a little fat kid who thinks he's frizzing up chicks. I mean, it's really funny. Anyway, but the thing I was most annoyed by in this match that everyone had lots of fun with is that, so QT Marshall, he's getting pissed off. He's getting outclassed, as I said. That guy's outclassing me. I don't like that. I'm the heel. It was very, very basic or simple or timeless, depending on where you fit on that. And then because Paul White, who was commentating, had walked the Rizzler to the ring, which is nice. I mean, the kid's going to be overawed. Someone had to do it.
Incredible, side gag.
Good side gag because Paul White's really big. The big show they used to call him is that as soon as QT went over to the Rizzler, Paul White stood up and was like, what the are you doing? Dare go over to him. And it was weird because I think Daddy Magic had also said, do you think the Rizzler's going to give him a slap? And I was like, don't say it because it's going to be more fun when he does. But then he didn't do it.
No physicality from the Rizzler. Obviously saving that for another day.
Maybe. He is a worker. I just thought he could have slapped QT. QT wouldn't have to have even drawn back. He would have just had to go on, nail me. Like beating up Big Boom in front of him, go on, nail me. And then the Rizzler just slaps him. How hard is that?
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that.
It was funner than that.
It was, a nice time. The only concern, realistically, was drummed up by, in reality, what was a relatively small portion of people on social media and a relatively small bunch of people in attendance at the Dynamite Rampage taping who booed them. There was that little ripple on Friday of, oh man, is this going to go down like a fart in church? Because this needs positivity. This needs like the Costco guys to be the baby face. Yeah, the crowd need to remember the TNA thing. And they got to be cast members. Yeah. And they were. And they absolutely it was great. Everyone bought in. As you pointed out, kind of ended up being one of the most over things in the show. Earnestly, like in terms of volume and just enthusiasm and everything. I think there's a few people online patronising ball knowers, giving it the old guys. All you need is a work punch. Yeah, that's the purity of this business, and it's not true. You need a good work punch, and you need a massive TikTok following, and people just to buy in. I think it does. I think that understates what this was ultimately. A guy in Big Boom AJ that had enough about him to like not just put the tights on and remember how to wrestle, but to lean into what he is now. Like, what if he'd have tried to go back and just be like, hey, this guy in the New Jersey Indies that nobody's ever heard of did these moves that nobody ever remembers. No. He has to make it make sense with who he is today. I do think there was a bit of an art to this. And then when he did, just like, still got this in him, and he goes up to the top. I proper gasped because they didn't do the wrestler delay on the suplex. He was like, I'm pretty tired, we're going now. He just gets straight up there, and he's like, all right, here we go. And I was like, it's happening right away. Because he was looking pretty tired out, wasn't he? And he
of course.
And fair enough.
I was gassed.
Like, QC Marshall was making all the space from me.
Cookies.
That's a lot of chicken breaks.
There was one really good spot where you thought QT Marshall is going to hit him with a plancha or whatever to the outside and just hit all of his security guards.
Really good stuff.
It's a good side gag.
I know, really, really enjoyed this.
Yeah, I enjoyed it far more than the opener proper, which was a four-way match for the AEW World Tag Team titles. Again, this speaks to that sentiment I spoke about in the intro there of, go on, impress me. We're not really that high on AEW TV. I mean, you can tell by the discourse, the gates, almost everything. Yeah. Private Party retain in a match that also involved House of Black, Acclaimed, and the Outrunners. The Outrunners kind of got their stuff in. It was fine, I guess. Malachi Black looked weirdly so up for it. It's like, what are you doing? Why can't you do this all the time? Yeah. Why are you so selective about it? Every time Malachi was in the ring, and that was a lot early. I was like, this has got some promise. And then it just kind of dissolved into Acclaimed are going to split melodrama. I will say that I don't know if it was like a fate thing or if it was generous to say that they really worked for this reaction or if the crowd expected and got ahead of it. But Max Caster, who was performing with a heelish edge throughout, got booed, and Bowens got cheered. Yeah. And they played off really well to the crowd, but otherwise this was just pretty drab. And then Private Party just simply won, came out of nowhere. I just didn't have a great time with this at all, and I can barely remember any of the bloody moves.
It's not a disappointment because the expectations were pretty low.
I knew this was just going to be a bit bobbins me.
But it can be classed as a... not even a setback, really. A very nothing first defense or private party, which is less than ideal when you're trying to have this tag team.
Yeah.
It's as if they've earned this spot, and it's not just that they're doing like, oh, the belts make the men. They're like, no, this is our time.
Yeah.
And this match didn't really tell that story, as you say. It leaned into the...
They were a bit
stuff.
anonymous throughout.
A little bit, and which is, again, less than ideal. There was two things that bothered me about this match because I felt like I was given time to be bothered by them rather than be engaged in the story or any sense of sort of peril that the champions were put in. The acclaimed spot in which Max Caster spotted an opportunity and laid down for Anthony Bowens to make the cover seemed to completely confuse the commentators and briefly sort of confuse the referee. And nobody, and this really bothered me as a detail thing, nobody stopped to mention, and they don't need to call it this, that's the Outlaws rule.
I forgot about this goddamn spot. Right.
So Billy Gunn's there ringside. Max Caster sort of spies this opportunity where the ring is clear, and Bowens is like doing some cool babyface fire up stuff, and Max Caster's like, pin me. And Bowens has a minute, and he hesitates because he's a babyface and he wants to do this the right way, but he's like, all right, and he goes to cover, and
the idea that this could have worked sickened me so much that I'm almost appalled at myself for forgetting it in my my very brief notes that I've made. Will Vaughan's not here. If you're joining us for the very first time, we usually have a host, a fellow Dadley boy, a great man, the best of the business, who goes these run-throughs. And he got on the pay-per-views, he kind of phones it in.
Well, I think he's quite. I think he's tired.
Yeah,
he's tired after these long boys. But no, what bothered me about this spot?
You claimed with the four-way thoughts.
The reason this should have been dwelled upon with the Acclaim specifically is that, and this was like an Excalibur job or somebody, Billy Gunn's probably suggested that. That was a very famous time that he was able to retain a tag belt, and then that rule was outlawed. But I guess it's fair game here, right? That would have been. It looks a bit silly, but fine if Billy Gunn, if that's like a tactical thing. Billy Gunn's done if in doubt, try this. You might get away with it. Worked for us once. However, this match then goes on to undermine that because there is a spot where the legal man is not getting pinned. Remember that thing towards the end? Oh, Bowens has got it. Oh, he's not the legal man. Well, how can Max Caster and Anthony Bowens be the legal man at the same time 30 seconds earlier? So you've put in what I thought was quite a creative spot if it's got this Billy Gunn callback that they ignored.
Spot,
it's a bad spot, but like I thought there's a reference point there and they just dropped the reference. They didn't use it. They didn't reference that Billy Gunn had anything to do with it. It was just a Max Caster heel thing. And then needed the legal man to matter when it came to finish time when it hadn't mattered like seconds earlier, and it was bad booking, pretty mediocre wrestling, anticlimactic finish, very little heat. People are into the Acclaim split, but I wouldn't necessarily call it this majestically worked deal, even though they've done some work with the Hurt Syndicate and MVP being the straw. Outrunners need the FTR turn now as well, don't they?
Yeah, it feels like, right, get moving on all of this because I think the fan reaction would indicate that a lot of people are bored. Another pretty heatless match, but one that I thought the work was really good, and they got there in the end, was MJF defeating Roderick Strong, the basic thrust of which was that Roddy Strong was going for the backbreak over and over again. MJF sort of neutralized this by working over the arm. It was a case of whose body part has been weakened the most in a photo finish, if you like. That's maybe the euphemistic way of saying it kind of came out of nowhere and was a bit of an anticlimax. Roddy hits end of heartache, but he's clutching at the arm. It's been damaged too much throughout. He can't make the cover, but he's so close to MJF that he's in fact vulnerable to take the Fujiwara arm bar. I think more than the wrestling, which I thought was good, but this match took a while to get going in terms of a crowd reaction. Again, I don't really blame the crowd because the story's unfolded in a way that is just outright baffling. But the action was, I would describe it as just good enough. A nice second match, which I think is below MJF at this point, but I'm desperate to see what this dude does away from Adam Cole. It's one of my key things out of 2025. Get this dude away from this, and let's see if he can recapture those old glories. The thing I was most taken by, other than the actual work, was MJF in his entrance, was just thrusting away.
Yeah.
He grabbed the mic. He said, this is a shithole. I'm so glad that I'm going to be out of here soon enough, blah, 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 blah. I've been away, and thank God for that, because I've been shooting movies, and while I've been shooting movies, Roderick Strong's mother has been shooting his daddy.
Yeah.
I got the distinct impression, and maybe this is copium on my part because I'm not the hugest fan of MJF in his lair or the pre-tapes, that he seemed to be on a speed run to convince people I'm much better in the live context. I've missed this. I didn't get the chance to do a live go-home promo. I like being a live wrestler. Don't just consider me this sort of arch pre-taped guy.
Yeah.
Here's a microphone. Here I am. Bang, bang, bang. Hate me. I like being live. I'm good live, aren't I? Yes, very much was my response. Here comes the match. I think it was just a bit of, he had a point to prove in terms of being the live wrestler. Am I making any sense here?
Yeah, I took it slightly differently, but I think that's a good take. I thought it was pointed in that you don't see this very often, this like pre-match preamble or it was very like noticeable that he was doing these like thrusts to the crowd and like getting every bit of heat. Like it was something he did to a fan as well. I thought there was a worry that he just wasn't going to be received enough as a heel to make this match work.
Yeah.
They probably know the story is weak, that this is the match to build.
They know it's not working. They'll just wake up and think, oh, for Christ's sake.
This is the match to build a match, and a lot of people don't even want the match that it's building to.
Yeah.
So this was always going to be in a tough spot. I thought this would open just because I kind of thought the two men would try and get that slot and just try and, if nothing else, MJF in these pay-per-view openers often delivers one of the best matches of the night, and I wonder if there was any kind of conversation around that, and the fact that, well, yeah, but what happens is you get really well received, and the last thing we need in the story that isn't really working is for you to be the babyface in the buildings. Yeah. And I just felt like they were working towards that as much as possible. I'm with you on the match. I liked it less after the show finished because this was one of several double body part matches. And one match in particular was A, the best at it, and B, needed it because that had been the story that had been being told. Well, obviously, we'll get to what match needed that like idea, and yet several of the matches seem to get it. It was, which I just found odd.
Yeah, I'm with you, and I've got a broader point to make on that as well. I'm glad you've sort of triggered that or sparked that within me. It's that these pay-per-views need to be shorter. They need to be shorter, especially like quarterly. Nah, they're fine. If you sequence them, they're fine. Maybe that's rose-tinted. I do not know. I'm a huge advocate for less being more. Did we need to see Chris Jericho, for example, as a recent example, have over the span of a fortnight, sorry, I know the Yanks hate that, 2 weeks, in the span of 2 weeks, 2 matches involving a ladder. Why do we need to lose our sense of what pro wrestling should be and how special it's meant to be and how much of a last resort it's meant to be? Why should we lose sight of that? Because a defensive Chris Jericho realizes he needs the shortcuts. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I enjoyed how there was no stipulation matches. There were no stipulation matches on this show. But there's a lot of, I don't know, if someone's not selling a body part really well when there's a pretty sort of strict sequence of actual pro wrestling matches across 4 hours. I mean, New Japan got away with it, but I just think that peak was better than this one.
Yeah.
In the mid to late 2010s there. It just felt like a lot of the same.
I don't want to dump, really, on any of this. This is a real...
There's some matches here that I straight up love. So stick with us. It's just him being miserable.
I don't want to dump on the show. I didn't have a bad time with it, but like, if I'm not sounding positive... Like stuff stuck out for me, like especially in this early, like I would say you could split this card into 3 really, in this early third. I was like, why have you done that? The MJF attacks Roderick Strong after the bell, Pillmanizes the arm, and then Adam Cole makes a save. Wrestling is dumb.
And then, sorry, I should mention this, and also that brings out Kyle O'Reilly, who shoves Cole to the mat with the idea being, see, I told you on Wednesday, people you love will get hurt because of this crusade that you're on.
They're both idiots. So Adam Cole should have made the save literally 30 seconds earlier, because he comes down with his entrance music. It's the usual thing. It's like wrestling has to be wrestling, but it's like just be there earlier for it. And then Kyle O'Reilly's no better because he gets there afterwards as well. Like, fair enough, on Dynamite, Adam Cole just be like, I just got to the building. Well, why? But then if Kyle O'Reilly has just lost his moral high ground by not being there for... Like, if he'd have come out first...
It's bad enough that people don't want this to begin with.
Yeah.
And then you do a sloppy jalopy son of a bitch version of it.
Yes. I just found it like... I found myself getting wound up by just watching Kyle O'Reilly.
Literally the key demo for Undisputed Era nostalgia.
I know.
You don't even want it.
I don't want it.
This guy held on to black and gold like a loser for so long.
Too long, if anything. They must all want this to be done with. Surely they must all want this to be done with. World's End will be it, won't it? So.
Absolutely. And the next match I thought was at once absolutely superb. I was probably a little bit lower slightly than consensus, but I said at the start of this podcast, there was some wrestlers in AEW who goddamn needed a good to great night. And at long last, Mercedes Money had a match that really, really got over. She defeated Chris Statlander in a superb, much-needed performance. They play with the dynamic really well. It's emphasized how much stronger Statlander is. So Mone doing a really good strategy. Just hits her with Meteora City. Is going for a strike, an aerial-based style, but she gets caught a lot of times. And there's some great struggle in the reversals to the reversals. There's this swell throughout this audience that, again, seem to begrudgingly get into things, and that's the way it's going to work when you're presenting a cold and drastically uneven product week to week in front of them.
Got to earn it from 10,000 people again.
Got to earn it, and they did. They did. With 2 near falls in this match, again, I'm not very good at going move for move. Normal service will resume when Wilborn is back. I'm just going to give you the vibe check, I suppose. But I would describe 2 of the near falls in this match as 4 3/4 stars. It was weird, right? I thought Mercedes Money had gone a little bit too early on the shocked NXT face. But then when she kicked out with something else, when she kicked out with something herself, after doing the shocked NXT face, she then just did the overconfident, I've got this in the bag.
Yeah.
She can't put me away. And then when it was her turn to go back on the offensive, the NXT face was all the more shocked and like, oh my God, this is it. This can't be it. This can't be happening. I'm undefeated. I'm the best, but she's got my number. I am scared. And then she out-wrestles her at the very, very last second with like the Bulldog pin, was it?
Having like snapped her throat off the ropes to like stun her enough to just... Like it wasn't a knockout blow, was it? It was like, she's finally distracted and wrapped up enough to... And
then I thought Mercedes Money's facial reaction after pinning her was immaculate. It wasn't like, I'm the absolute best in the world, here we go. It was very much of, Jesus Christ, I kind of just got away with that, thank God.
Yeah.
I thought this was excellent. I thought it was a triumph of in-ring work, considering the build was hysterically poor. Not almost, very much laughable. And that is probably the ultimate credit to the wrestlers involved in the match, because, again, people were like, yeah, this could be all right. Let's just see how it unfolds. And then they got so into this by the finish. Yeah,
I love this. One of my favourite things on the show this was, and maybe an element of that is just sort of, you're always fighting for this title with Mercedes Money, aren't you?
Yeah.
You're kind of still rooting
People got a lot of really, like, people needed her in 2015. They needed her. They'd had the Punk thing. Pissed it all away. They'd had the Daniel Bryan thing. Pissed it all away. The main roster... oh God, this is never going to get good, is it? Yeah. They've dangled a carrot in front of us. They've taken it away cruelly and, with relish.
Yeah.
Oh my God, NXT's here and she's the best one in it. Yeah. And I listen to her music on the commute because it's making me love wrestling again. So people are fighting for her.
Yeah. And, this match alone isn't going to sort of turn around what's been a poor year. But it could turn around everything else for Mercedes Money if she goes on to have a better year next year. We could look back on this match, and you'd like to think this is how it's going to play out. We could look back on this match as the moment where things clicked for Mercedes Money, because what I loved about this was that it was simultaneously a very A to B to C pro wrestling match, just like you remember.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, kind of abandoned the structures of the traditional working heel and babyface. This was Chris Statlander, as you say, kind of constantly cutting off Mercedes Money and all the things she can do, but Mercedes Money was the heel. So it was very much my best versus your best, and just it didn't have that extended heat sequence. It would go back to Chris Statlander, who was like they were sort of volleying their best back and forth to one another, which allowed for these amazing near falls. The best moneymaker ever, I think.
Yes,
it's a terrible finisher, but low bar, but
low bar. I'm thinking the emotion that they generated in the arena probably obscured the fact that if you just saw that clip in isolation, I still don't think it's good at all. But this is probably the best execution.
Maybe that's it.
Maybe the latitude was extended towards it.
Just in by then, This was as well because they'd done a hurried. It was on the pre-show, wasn't it? That hurried little Camille stay backstage. I don't like you. You're dumb and stupid. That's coming to an end, isn't it? If this is the match that, as we think may happen, is what feeds into the Hurt Syndicate being we're after belts and let's just hire a champion, and this brings them together, then I've seen some criticism about, well, you should have built up this Camille relationship for splitting them apart. Sometimes
it hasn't worked. It
just drop bad ideas. Sometimes
I'm not being funny. Like there's a different version of, it's a different era. AEW, you know, they get confused and they get lost, but they are ordinarily they strive to be continuity sticklers. Like they're really unfocused right now, but I think that's because they're more inept than they don't care.
Yeah.
Other companies would just quietly, boom, it's gone. Let's never speak of this again. But yeah, I mean, it's just not worked as an act. I think like it's ironic that she's called a heater because it should just Camille makes it look like every pro wrestler ever with every kind of act that every heel pro wrestler has had at one point or another. It's absolute.
Mercedes using the exact dumb or stupid verbiage, knowing that was what people were like throwing back at her. That's her acknowledging that this is dead in the water. Isn't it? She's seen that online. She's pinching it for a bit of back and forth between two of them. It's like, this belongs to me now. I'm taking this back.
Yeah, just get rid. I don't need to see the match.
No.
I don't think I need to see any Camille match. It's just not very good, and it hasn't worked. And sometimes we should be more ruthless, I think. Jay White defeated Hangman, much to my surprise, in the fourth match of the main card. It goes about 20 minutes. For about 12 minutes, it's pretty cold. Almost like, Jesus Christ, like the work's pretty good here. Not great, not as good as the first match.
Yeah.
For a long part of it, I thought maybe misjudged. Needed a little bit more intensity and fire a bit early. But then I don't know if it's hyperbolic to say saved by the last 5 minutes. But the last 5 minutes really helped to get it over because I think it was trending in a pretty middling direction until they started to really turn it on. Again, the general gist of the match is that after all of that talk in the build of what's Hangman actually going to do to Jay White, not what you're going to do, but you don't even know what I'm capable of yet, and I've done this, this, and this. And maybe a detail that was a little bit cute for this crowd who've come to expect like total madness from the Hangman Page character. He goes after Jay White's leg.
I loved it, man.
I loved it. I really enjoyed it, but I was just, come on, get into it. But maybe Hangman's character being as unhinged as it is, people expected a little bit more than some really nice strategic pro wrestling back and forth.
I'm not going to like stand up for the Hangman here, but I thought it was like so inspired. When they did the bit where it was like, why do you think this show's in called Fulgate? You don't know who I am. It's like the ego of the man. Legwork it is then.
Yeah, I guess.
I love that detail.
I did like
so
that
much
detail,
like
but there is maybe a little bit of supply and demand.
People want the house burning down guy now, and it's
maybe I don't know. But ultimately, the last 5 minutes are superb. They go to the ramp as they did at the match at Wrestle Dream. They adapt the spot where there's going to be Jay White's got a shin breaker attempt on Hangman Page. Hangman Page slips out of it. There's like this gruesome suplex, was it, on the ramp? Who did it to who? Sorry, my memory is so poor.
Jay White to Hangman Page.
Jay White to Hangman, and Hangman's punch to set it up was just absolutely out of this world. Then I think there's more ramp stuff because what happens is a glorious double count out tease where Jay White sprints into the ring first, but then Hangman, by being second, is able to go, oh, hang on, this has worked in my favor because then I can do the buckshot from this apron position, and again he loses. Did this surprise you?
Yeah, but I kind of love how it played out in the end. The counter was once again just like Jay White. These
have got immaculate chemistry.
Oh, the physical chemistry is amazing. The Jay White counter game that has served him so well as a heel, I think he's getting him there as a babyface, and I don't know if maybe
was still a bit cold. Like he didn't come out and get received as this babyface star on the rise, which is worrying considering the main event angle post match tells you he's either the number one contender or they're doing a 4-way at World's End.
Well, does that raise the bigger question? Because I think we probably broadly agree on this match. I'm with you. It did take a while to get going, but I was Lenny from The Simpsons because I think I'm just bored. I'm buying in.
Yeah.
But I didn't necessarily expect the building to come, and then eventually they did.
They came. They parked in the erection.
They got their nut.
They got their nut.
Is there an argument that at some point you cannot run any further with Hangman Page as a heel because crowds are just telling you no? Like, I haven't meant to make this comparison considering it was a culture war 3 weeks ago, but the Steve Austin heel turn reaching its like final point at the end of the invasion, just being like, I don't think I want him back as a babyface, but this heel thing is untenable. Let's get him cheered again. Hangman Page comes out at the end, we're jumping ahead, but the Moxley thing, nobody's going like the baddie who has got a kind of an alignment with Christian Cage. They're like, Hangman Page could stop him, and they're being shown that, and there's an element of intention there.
I was like, is he going to turn?
Right, and is that sort of, Hangman Page got a bigger pop in the building in the entrances with him and Jay White. So as much as like this, I think the story's been really well told on television. Like, is it just one of them situations where him as a heel for much longer is kind of untenable?
Maybe.
AEW as an audience, AEW crowds collectively are just going, no. Like, we want him more than we want most other people.
Yeah, I think it's such a shame because Hangman's doing some absolutely exceptional, all but impossible character work. We've spoken extensively about how, like, it's just so hard to be unhinged. It's so hard to play unhinged. Attempts to do so are laughable. I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm pretty, I'm quite mystical. I can see the truth in the liar's eyes. Awful. Absolutely awful. Paige can do it. Paige has turned heel at a weird time in AEW's run because he's the main character. When you saw him face-to-face with Mox, and maybe it was a bit of a deft foreshadowing visually, but when he came out, I was like, it makes all the sense in the world for a story I don't even like for him to save it because he's the main character. It's like, I'm the hero of the story. Of course, I'm going to take everything back for us. Maybe Jay White just isn't it as this charismatic leading brand leading babyface who can talk people into the buildings and be the star of the show and cut those in-ring promos. Maybe people just don't want that from him. Yeah. Maybe they don't. He'd be a nice... Oh, he's won again, TNT champion as a heel. I think that's his ceiling, and I think that's his role.
Instead of, he's won again, and he's going to get world title.
Yeah. Which is like a little, it's just not, that's
the
not
win
good.
was for that, wasn't it?
Yeah.
For this title run against Moxley, which he will lose.
Yeah. So it's like, they've built it, they have built it, but again, he's just not magnetic enough. He's not that guy. Mm-hmm. He is he's won again, he's found another way. That wonderful cheating, like that diamond sharp mind of his. Mm-hmm. That's who he is, and that's where he should go, in my opinion. What you could argue is match of the night. It's neck and neck for another match later on the show, followed next. Carl Fletcher defeated Will Ospreay in an absolutely incredible war. This was not as good as, but at times they nailed that vibe of the first, well, maybe not the very first, of the Wrestle Kingdom match between Omega and Ospreay, where it's this sort of protracted, drawn-out murder where one guy is just pretty much killing the other for the duration, and that informs these great comebacks, but it's just like a murder, and then he's killed him again and again. How's he getting up from this? I mean, he's doomed. I don't believe he's going to win, but fair enough for getting into it. Fletcher defeats Will Ospreay pretty much clean as a whistle. Yeah, clean as a whistle. I was half expecting like there's going to be some screwdriver. They're going to have a great match. It's going to be even better than the one that they had on Dynamite. I know it's going to go a certain way. I'm looking more for Kyle Fletcher's ability to steal a show as I am the actual finish, which I expect to be some screwdriver stuff. No, we killed the dude. He absolutely killed him. Some of the moves here and Ospreay's reaction to them and Fletcher's just delight in actually doing it with just the real stuff. Like I really felt something for this. I gather that a lot of you watching or listening actually watch these shows. So you will have seen the tombstone, jumping tombstone from the apron onto the ring steps. They not only pulled it off flawlessly, if there's a way to actually pull this off, like I thought his head could get, what if his head, so you, in the steel steps, right, it's kind of like a triangle gap. Yeah. What if he hasn't nailed this perfectly? There's such a little margin for error. There's like, I don't know, there's a landing zone of two thick bits of the triangle and then the edge. Mm-hmm. What if he'd put his knees on either side, Ospreay's head just got stuck in and then went back on itself?
Oh, God.
They were playing with friggin' fire with this spot. They somehow executed it magnificently. They do such a wonderful job of making people do that lurching stomach noise of, oh, don't do that. I know you're going to do it. It's like whenever you see, I think this might be one of your least favorite spots ever, when Kurt Angle was very much guilty of this. I'm going to grab you by the waist as you cling to the rope because I'm going to do a German.
Yeah.
You never do the German.
Yeah.
Stop doing it. This was like a worse version of that, and they bloody did it. Beyond that, it was almost, after that spot, a matter of time, but Ospreay kept getting into it. He structures this comeback that leads to super kick, heel kick, duck, Spanish fly, hidden blade. But that sort of like is very much last stand. And after that, he does this. What's the move that Fletcher does where it's kind of a Stormbreaker, Tiger Driver, but he just kind of lets go?
Yeah.
It's like the two grossest.
It's got a name for it, and I can't remember what it is.
I can't remember. I'm sorry. I'm useless at names. I've always been rubbish at move names. But it's kind of like the two most disgusting. The
Grimstone.
The Grimstone.
Yep.
Which is basically like a Ganzo bomb, Tiger Driver hybrid. The two
with the drop on your heat.
Yeah, the two worst or best, depending on your POV, super All Japan finishers ever rolled into one. Absolutely grotesque. Ospreay just kicks out. His selling of the arm throughout was immaculate, absolutely immaculate. He's got that Kenny thing, because he's very much indebted, is Ospreay to Kenny Omega, where he'll do that sort of turtle sell, where it's like, it's not this flailing, arm shoots up, dramatic kick out, but it's like this last millisecond, and then he gets beaten with the brainbuster, off that top turnbuckle. It's a hard one to pull off. So even Takeshita, as gifted as he is, couldn't really do it earlier this year. Fletcher's went, I'll have that. And then he's done it himself. This was a murder.
Yep.
This was a mutilation. This felt ugly and exhilarating, both at the exact same points you're meant to feel those emotions. There's one bit where they try and do this fluid sequence through the ropes that ends up in another tombstone pile driver to the outside. They kind of screw that up, but I didn't care. And it's early enough where it doesn't sort of get that lead balloon feeling out of the finish. This is outstanding. What's ironic is that there was a wrestler doing the media rounds prior to Full Gear who said, I feel I can carry a company. I haven't had the chance to do so, but I feel like I can carry a company. We'll mention who that wrestler is later when their match comes up. Someone did that, and it wasn't the wrestler who said it. It was Carl Bloody Fletcher.
Yeah. I love this. This was my match of the night. I am going to say this is my favourite Will Ospreay match in AEW thus far.
He did an unbelievable job here. He can do it all.
Yeah, I put this online after the fact. We have kind of both made no secret of not necessarily always being Will Ospreay guys. And there was stuff in this match.
Every time he wrestles, I change my mind though.
Well, see, there was stuff in this match that if I'm just picking
If
I'm picking it apart move by move, I'm like, oh, that's why I'm not a Will Ospreay guy. Like, it is so much to ask of one of the 17 ways to kill a guy to not be the way you do it because it's the 18th that does it. That is, you are asking so much of your audience every time, and it does take masters of the craft to do it, of which Ospreay is one of it. Kenny Omega is one. I love their chemistry, Ospreay and Fletcher's. I love the Dynamite match when the dynamic was totally different. Yeah. But I love this even more. And Ospreay has this. It is incredible to me. Like, Fletcher was amazing. I'm going to talk Fletcher first, actually, because I want to wax lyrical about Ospreay after the fact.
This is the Star is Born stuff.
Love seeing this. Said it relentlessly this year about Swerve Strickland. Increasingly found myself saying it about Willow Nightingale when actually she's given the opportunity. Much harder, obviously, but you've got to want it. You've got to want it. You've got to run with the ball, kid. And Fletcher is doing so. Swerve did so. Willow did so. At this point in AEW's a fluid state, I guess, where a lot of people will be given opportunities, but then so many get overwhelmed by so many others. It completely comes down to the individual wrestler as to what they make of it. There's going to be good booking, there's going to be bad booking. We know you're going to get both. It's what you do to either elevate the bad and make the most of the good. And Fletcher is the latest to do that. And there might not be anything more exciting in wrestling than watching a wrestler doing that, because it shows that it's not just a single issue thing. It's not just, red carpet, creative, that's how you make a career. No, the wrestler then has to work up to the spot in the promos and the matches, in the look, in the character development, in the way that you adjust your style.
Carries himself incredibly well.
It's that thing, it used to just be as simple as calling it the it factor. That got cannibalized, I think, a little bit, but I always think of it as I always use the Homer Simpson made of gold bit from The Simpsons. Sometimes wrestlers seem to grow
Something different about you, Homer?
Like 2, 3, 4.
Oh, yeah, you made it gold. You're the biggest guy in the world now.
I don't know how they do it, but the wrestlers that do, when they lock that extra level, that is very much what puts them on another level. And what it sometimes takes is a Will Ospreay who is doing it for people before he's even been elevated himself. His ability, on Twitter over the weekend, nobody reads that anymore, so they won't have heard this. He's like Bret Hart from space. Like, he is making guys with a completely different mindset and an approach to pro wrestling, obviously, but he is doing it in such a way where he is quite clearly the most crucial, vital, and important wrestler on this entire roster. Hasn't even ascended, hasn't even been crowned as such.
It's going to be amazing when he does now. He's working at this.
He's like making 20 guys at the same time. Like, what a...
They need him so badly. I'm an idiot. I said at the time they shouldn't have signed him.
Well, it's because I think the way he's doing it, I said this.
He's surprising me more.
He's a revelation.
Yeah.
And he shouldn't be, but what he continues to do.
Every time he comes out, he's better than I even thought.
Yeah. It is remarkable how he can make wrestlers. And again, the point I guess I'm trying to make is to not take away from Kyle Fletcher is that Will Ospreay can make you, but it's then what you do with that that really is the difference as to who, like, how beneficial is the job going to be down the line. You know, like, I'm trying to think of a Brett example. Brett would have put over Jean-Pierre Lafitte and would have put over Isaac Yankem in the same year. A pirate and a dentist.
Yeah.
The matches with the pirate you're going to remember, and it's like, they should have done more with him, and the Click hated him. Dentist sucked. And he made friends with The Undertaker and had to start again. You know, like...
It's funny how him and Triple H did that.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, it just... Like, Kyle Fletcher would have still had this incredible night, this incredible match, as he did on that Dynamite, but it's this Kyle Fletcher that is going to make that and turn it into something. The timing of that missed hidden blade is going to be something I'm going to think about for 5 years.
I know.
Like, it needs to be precision perfect. You've highlighted stuff before that he's done like that with Bryan Danielson, stuff like that with MJF. I think this is my favourite Will Ospreay timing moment of the year because that move simply cannot be even half it, otherwise the guy's still dead.
Yeah.
And it's like Seth Rollins in the cage spike. Oh, Jesus Christ. And he's fine. Yeah. He's just fine. But it's
one of those moves where it's probably worse if it misses because in order to get it correct, like, that's to be absolutely... I mean, it's Will Ospreay. The guy is, in terms of the physicality of what he does, he's on that genius list. In terms of how he can, like, the physical timing of what he does is out of this world. So it's even worse if you're doing, like, you have to miss this. You have to duck. It's on you to duck. No, this is absolutely majestic. This is unbelievable. And what I loved about it most is that they've actually put the graft in with Kyle Fletcher ahead of this. And I've seen evidence that Kyle Fletcher has it. And this isn't just, like, a match in a vacuum where he looks great, or he looks like a star's been born, because he's in there with, quite frankly, the best wrestler on planet Earth. Yeah. That match against Commander on Collision did something to me. It's like no one, with how bleak the atmospheres are at Collision, with what an AEW cliche of a match it was. Star on the Rise beats a guy who's there to take jobs. It's Collision. We see this every week. He did something special with that where it's like, he's undeniable. This guy is undeniable. And it's how quickly it's happening is just sort of incredibly compelling.
I was so glad he won.
I was so glad
because it would have been fine. You would have got all of that even in defeat, but it's just, that's an extra level.
Yeah, an extra level. Right. Like, what's wild is that if you go back to, I think it was definitely at Daly's Place, maybe the Dynamite after Dynasty. Sorry, that's too many Ds. And you know what alliteration is? It's the work of arseholes. Kyle Fletcher has that match with Swerve Strickland. And it's like, it's a bit PWG land, Phil. It's a bit like, where's the sense of ceremony surrounding a new champion? If they had a match now, it's at least 2 stars better. Yeah. Because they've both done an incredible, incredible job of just, right, you've got the spot, or the chance to have the spot. Do you want to take it? Both hands. They've totally crushed it. This match was incredible. Kyle Fletcher needs to win a big title next year. Otherwise, all this is for naught. And I don't want to pin everything on one person. It's not fair. But there's a politically delicate logjam fueled by a greedy recruitment policy at the top of this AEW card. Kyle Fletcher needs to headline a show next year. If there's a functioning hierarchy and a true meritocracy at play here, it's not acceptable. He needs to be on that list of, it's a long list as well, of wrestlers who get a singles match in every single pay-per-view. Fletcher's there for me. An unbelievable performance. Will Ospreay, I'm running out of words. I must be a Will Ospreay guy. Maybe his TV matches, I wouldn't put him on TV that much anymore. What he does on pay-per-view is so special.
Do you know what it is with Will Ospreay? Because I've thought about this a lot over the weekend.
He could have went histrionic here, and he didn't. He gets better every single time, and he's already the best.
My thing, but I'm questioning how much this necessarily always matters, is that I'm not so sure I don't know how much value I get out of rewatching Will Ospreay matches.
I watched the Danielson one, it's even better.
Exactly. Like,
oh God,
I've done it a couple of times, and I've remembered the feeling of how it was to watch live, and then it's just not been the same. And I think that's where
I'm watching this again tonight. I think
the debate around the moves and stuff, that's where I think it holds some weight. Is that just when you know the moves are not the finish, because you remember the finish and you remember the beats and stuff. I think that's where some of it I've found it loses a little something on rewatch. But I'm not using that as a mark against him, because it's kind of all about how you feel in the moment and the stuff it leaves with you. And he just leaves, like, his matches leave so much with you. This is the thing, right?
Sorry, go on.
No, the hardest job AEW has, and they've done it quite well, and Will Ospreay has proven so, like, we're talking like The Rock in 2002 levels of secure in his spot, that he'll put anybody over and know it's fine. They have to beat him on television, because otherwise there's simply no other argument that stops him being world champion.
Yeah.
He's better than everybody. And it's just, if he was winning, then you'd be knackered, because it'd just be like, well, and he gets John Moxley straight away and he kicks his ass. Yeah. You can't do that, can you? So these defeats, like, it's tactical booking on AEW's part, because it's the only thing you can do to stop the groundswell saying, belt him now. We've got Forbidden Door in London. Can they even stretch it another year and do it at Wembley in 2026?
No,
surely not. But
I just want to see the moment. I want to see one near miss, and I want to see the moment. The guy's just so good. It's going to be amazing when it happens, however they do it. Mm-hmm. He's going to wrestle Darby Allin as well. First of all, oh my God, that was for Mercedes Money versus Statlander. Oh my God. Jay White, Hangman Page. Oh my God. 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 4 3/4. That's what that was.
Nice.
For Ospreay Fletcher, and we're going to get Ospreay versus Darby Allin on Dynamite imminently. Oh my God. I'm scared of that match. I'm scared of it.
I was at first a little bit underwhelmed with the brackets, and then I thought, well, Ospreay, Fletcher, Darby, and who else? There was somebody else in the bracket, so I just thought, what have you got here? Like, the more I've thought about it since.
Carter?
Well, no, but obviously he'll deliver on the night.
Will he?
Well, maybe, I don't know. But the permutations got better the longer I looked at them. Do you know what I mean? I was kind of like, we'll probably talk about this later this week, but the possibilities there. Like, again, I know you're going to shoot hard very, very soon, but we're going to get, like, Ospreay, Ricochet again. And it's like, well, there's the biggest test for you, Will. Get something out of this guy.
Get something out of this guy. The next 2 matches were, it felt like the show was just getting into gear, full gear. And then Daniel Garcia defeats Jack Perry. This match was real bad, or real crepe for a long time. I will say that Daniel Garcia, almost through force of will, got a reaction in the last 3 minutes of this match. Because I think maybe people sense a title change, and a title change always gets a pap. But this was just real drab. It had no right going 20 minutes. It just lost me so often that I don't think they even found the thread of what they were trying to do. It was the first of 2 matches where I was like, you're going for a big swing of emotion here, and I think you've drastically misjudged how much people care about these characters or these wrestlers right now. Daniel Garcia is doing a lot of... his forearms are on the mat. He's snarling, he's grunting. He's getting those camera close-ups, and he's making this feel, because it is strictly the match of his life, the biggest moment of his life. He's on the cusp of winning the title, but it's been taken away from him for the first time in AEW, because the preceding work is so tedious and so cold, no one cares about it. But then, with some really strong work and some good fire, he kind of gets that reaction. There's this really cool sort of cross-legged pile driver that just looks awesome, and I think that sort of wakes up the crowd a bit, and then they get into the finish. But oh my God, this finish... Someone needs to have a word with Jack Perry. I was not on Team Punk throughout that entire fallout with AEW about the whole veteran advice thing. Because if you're Hangman Page, right? If you're Hangman Page and you say, just kind of do my own thing. I'm sorry, I'm not being obnoxious.
It's gone all right.
It's gone all right. Like they call me the main character. It's pretty much going okay. I think I'm pretty good at this. And he's like pretty sort of like bashful about it. Like, yeah, no, maybe people don't like that about me, and maybe it's not the way it's meant to be done, but this is the way I learn, and everyone learns in a different way. and it's horrifying one page to say that, Jack Perry, what you doing? You need to be sat down. How can you work alongside Christian Cage for as long as you did and be this professional wrestler? How can you be alongside the Young Bucks for as long as you're around them? On screen and as mates, and there's two paths you can choose to be a heel of your size, right? And you've been studying under... There's two trees you can sit under. You've been sat under them for probably about your entire AEW career at one point or another, either working with Christian Cage or working with the Bucks and palling around with the Young Bucks, right? If you're an undersized heel, you can either be this little rat who doesn't even do many moves when he consider it, or he doesn't actually deliberately do any moves. It's always like opportunistic. Oh, you've made a mistake there. I'm clever enough to do a counter here.
Set a trap. Maybe.
Set a trap. Yeah. A little trap setting rat who will just use anything you're trying to do against you because you're just constantly underneath. Just a little cheating bastard rat like Christian Cage is at his best. Or you can wear the fact that you're not very big and you're not like sort of legitimate and tough in a sort of a meta-ish way where it's like, right, I'll just spam all my stuff. So eventually, if I kick you that many times, it's going to have an effect. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to be really obnoxious at the same time, like a really hyperactive Young Bucks heel. It kind of just does this sort of soulless, thoughtless PWG landfill, dare I say almost methodical at points, and then stretches his arms out like Raven. And it's like, yeah, I'll lose, I guess. That's what I'm here to lose for the greater good, and I'll be the scapegoat. I'll be here to put other people over and not be the center of attention. I'll be the scapegoat, and he can beat me. So he does that, and then seconds later, it's like flailing around in the sharpshooter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you want to lose or not, mate?
Which is it?
Do you want to lose or not? And then eventually Danny Garcia wins, and people pop for the title change. And I think Garcia is really good. I don't know if truly great or if he's capable of true greatness, but people were happy for him. I was happy for him. But my God, this Jack Perry is what a woeful year it's been.
Yeah.
I don't know what he needs to take a lot of time off, and they need to really think about what they can do with him. This has not worked. I hated that sit down. I'll take my licks for the greater good. I'm here to just not be the center of attention. I'll be the scapegoat. So you're in a wrestling match, mate, and maybe you've learned politicking. You haven't learned how to work as a heel, but maybe you sat under Malachi Black's tree.
I mean, this was the Mercedes Money, Chris Statlander thing without the good match at the end, wasn't it? Because the story was just as bad. The story was just as stupid.
Edgelord cringe.
Daddy Magic was putting in like unenviable position on commentary, trying to simultaneously explain away what we'd seen them do to Jack Perry on Dynamite and then keep Daniel Garcia the baby face.
Jack Perry,
like the father figure. That didn't make sense. Jack Perry at various points in the match was going like, you're not ready, kid, like that, lean on that story beat. And then at various points, you'd be like, okay, get me. So what, he is ready then. Like, none of it means anything. And you're lying to us. Don't work me, bro. You know, you're faking it if you
Malachi Jack?
Malachi Jack. Like, I don't want this finish. But by rights, should he not have been laughing at his own pain in the sharpshooter? Is that when I don't know. When he gets put in the Dragon Tamer, as he permitted Daniel Garcia to do, and this feels like this has become the new starving for thing to be annoyed about in wrestling right now because there's way too much of this. You got frigging Uncle Howdy on Raw and Malachi Black on Dynamite being like, just for the greater good, ha ha ha. No, you're in pain. Like, I don't even want one Sean Spears doing that, let alone 5. Like, it's just the wet-ended political nonsense that wrestling throws up sometimes.
Like, what is he doing?
I hate it.
He did it in Blood and Guts as well, where he's like, he didn't go, there's a chair going on my face. It's like, I deserve it.
I live for this. And the match was just wrestling happening in front of us, wasn't it? Like,
oh my God.
Really, and in that, on those terms, a really bad night for Daniel Garcia. Let's be blunt about this.
I'd lay no blame at his feet whatsoever.
No.
Jack Perry is...
But as far as a crowning goes...
He's a Turcarino specialist. He's a specialist in Turcarinos.
You know, he's got the AEW flag wrapped over his shoulders at the end of the belt, and it's like someone earned, isn't it, all of this?
Batting him for it.
Just... We'll see. The Daniel Garcia's story in last year's C2 was one of the best in the whole tournament.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to watch how they build off that this year.
Yes.
And he's kind of become my sentimental favourite because if he wins, that means he probably unifies the titles.
Yes.
That's one less belt. So I'm going to rooting for him, if nothing else. Because it makes sense that he's kind of worked through Jack Perry and now he works up to Okada, but we'll see.
We'll see.
Perry being away is the best for everybody.
He needs to, this has been a disaster of a heel run, like a disaster. And so much so that it's the worst position to be in. Like, if you're a wrestler and you're kind of like, getting a bit tedious or whatever you're trying is not working, there's always that, well, just turn him heel. It's the Bruce Pritchard thing.
Yeah.
We'll just turn him heel. It's fine. No one wants to see him as a babyface.
What now?
He's got nowhere to go. Nowhere to go. Speaking of nowhere to go, Ricochet loses to Konosuke Takeshita.
The hell was this?
The hell was this? This was a bit of a disaster. So here's what I think has happened. And, like, I'm probably a little bit guilty of trying to play armchair psychologist, psychiatrist. I don't know these people, but I think I've got a sense of what people try to do, what their real motives are. Now, this match was methodical backselling from Ricochet over and over and over again. But because he's Ricochet, he did like sort of crumple trying to do a springboard. Maybe he tried to be consistent and at times was consistent. But then he just like does some moves where he's rolling through on the mat. It's like, oh, is his back not hurt?
Yeah.
Like, it's almost impossible for him to tell the story, or maybe he's just not as good as we thought. Ultimately, he gets his back injured or sort of worked over at the start, and the entire match is him trying to sell through it. It's got this really dreary, methodical pace. He fights back at various points. No one cares. And then Takeshita just simply wins at the end. Clean as a whistle as well.
Yep.
Here's what I think happened. Ricochet, talking to someone or other in the press, can't remember who. I saw it aggregated. And funny enough, because I don't really care about Ricochet, I better read all of this interview. I mean, I don't care about the dude. I just don't.
I saw that and didn't mind him saying it, though. I was like, fair enough, pay-per-view weekend. Absolutely, shoot your shot.
So he shot a shot, and what he said was, I want to be the guy who carries a company. I want to be the dude. I want to be the man, basically. I want to be what Cody Rhodes is to WWE. He feels like he can do it. He feels like he's in the best promotion who believes in him and who will let him be Ricochet. I think he has understood what he needed to do to try and sort of work towards that spot and failed at it. I think he's been savvy enough to realize I can't go in there and do a back and forth banger with Takeshita because that's A, what's expected of me, B, it's kind of easy for me to do that, C, I need to do something more. I want to really sort of take these fans on an emotional journey and get them to really care about me on a deeper level, not just this superficial athletic fireworks show that I can kind of do in my sleep now. And he's gone for this big emotional swing of I'm going to make the fans really care and remember me and get me into this match and over the line. And no one cared because people only want Ricochet realistically to do bangers. He's a banger guy. They don't care about him that much. He hasn't earned an emotional investment with the crowd so far because his form's been pretty middling by his old standards. I think he did. I mean, fair enough for going for this match. I appreciate the endeavor. I appreciate the fact that he knows he needed to do something else, but maybe he's just not that guy. He's not that wrestler. That was my read on why this was as dreary and as overambitious as it was.
I think that's very good analysis, but also potentially generous. Yeah. Like, I thought this was just a real
Turkerino.
It was a Turkerino based on the reasonable expectations of the standard. Seth Rollins' ass selling from Ricochet, and that comes from a guy that I like Seth Rollins some of the times, but the worst thing he does is betrays the first 12 minutes of what you've just watched in the final 3 or 4, and Ricochet was a nightmare for it.
He was a nightmare for this. Sorry, there's one thing I will forget. My memory's so bad. I'm sorry for stepping on your dick. There was a bit early in the match where I think his legs he just basically must have lost his balance, or he's just whatever. So he has to do this spot where he is on the outside, his hands are on the top rope, like a sort of an enziguri, if you like, to Takeshita, but he almost loses his footing. And then to get to the next spot, he sort of lifts his legs up and places them in Takeshita's arms. Yeah. And it's like, oh, God, bro.
That extra second that we talk about sometimes.
It just looks so contrived.
I'm not selling my stock
Oh, God, I never bought it in the first place.
However, I'm almost glad he's in the C2. This is it, really, isn't it? Like, what will people talk about you after a tournament that is entirely based on match quality? No run-ins, 20 minutes or less, every week, all the time. You are going to get, in your case, I guess, more than you even want of Ricochet for next month.
Way more.
However, this tournament exists, does it not, to make headline makers out of people, and we'll see who those people are. It is the best kind of manufactured Jim Ross 90s locker room.
Yeah.
Like, they've come up with a way in which...
I need to have the best match of the night.
Yeah.
But then he followed
and this
Ospreay,
was
Fletcher.
And this was one of those ones where it was like, yeah, it was added late, but everybody knew it was coming. Yeah, the story's been middling, but everybody knew it was kind of always going to be about the quality of the match.
People raved about their work together in the three-way.
Like, this was kind of... They'd sold this AEW pretty much. And he's an old example, but, like, the wrestlers, and those old enough to remember, like, remember how WWE promoted Shawn Michaels Mr. Perfect? They're just the best.
Yeah.
This is going to be the best because they're the best. That was pretty much the wiring of this one. And it...
Same result.
Same result.
Yeah.
Absolutely died on its arse on the night.
This died on its ass.
Doesn't mean the wrestlers...
You're a red piss on can.
Doesn't mean the wrestlers are finished. But interestingly, and I thought this was so notable, knowing, well, I've just name-checked him, and I didn't even think about what was the point I was about to make. Interestingly, when he took his seat, ready to call the two big last matches, I found it very pointed that Jim Ross went, that's Takeshita, what an athlete. If he ain't world champion, I guess I don't know the business anymore. And is that not Jim Ross code for, that stunk, don't hold it against the guy that we've told you is going to be one of the absolute goats of this place? Like, Jim Ross has called his fair share of Turkerinos in his time, and was he not the man at maintaining his...
Yeah, mercifully, it's over.
Ball and shoot ugly. He would always sort of maintain his own like credibility as an announcer. And if there was a guy to get over that didn't have the best night, Jim Ross would like let you, the viewer, know, arm around your shoulder, stick with the guy, because he's the guy. Yeah. I'm telling you, he's the guy. To name check Takeshita after a match like that just felt like, hey, Trevor sucks ass, but don't worry about it, cuz Konosuke's still the one to watch.
Trevor, man, does he stink. No, he's not that bad, but it was a bad night. Turkerino when he's struggling. Dude is struggling. Maybe he needs to, I reckon he needs to log off for a start. He's got that Twitter.
Maybe you nailed it on night one and it was just a simple problem. He brought the old trousers back, didn't he?
Christopher Daniels trousers. Maybe get those Turkerino flares off and maybe get those nice little trunks back. He'd be a better wrestler. I mean...
It's weird, though. Like, it seemed like things were going in the right direction and he puts those back on and it all goes wrong.
Yeah.
What's that about?
What's that about? The cursed trousers. Sounds like a Wallace and Gromit.
Wallace and Ricochet. That's how he makes his breakfast in the morning. Just loads of flips. It's a big like Rube Goldberg contraption.
So it's save your flips for the matches. This could have done with some, pal.
Not for your jam on toast.
That was bad, but we have the semi-main and the main. I think did a lot to elevate this pay-per-view to more than respectable territory. Lashley defeats Swerve. I think they pretty much measured this to perfection. It goes about 14 minutes. There's not much to it for the first half, but the guys are over. People are interested in seeing Lashley. And what I was particularly taken by is that the story of the match is that Swerve's hanging in there, Lashley's more powerful, and then it gets a little bit more vicious as it goes on. They do about 2 or 3 big ringside destruction spots, the likes of which you see all the time, but you haven't seen Lashley do them in AEW yet, so that's special, and they just structure it all great, this escalation. They do the spot where Ricochet runs up, Swerve Strickland runs up the ring steps, which we used too often on the night in truth, and then does the foot stomp, and Lashley goes through that table. I wish they'd filmed it from that third-person shooter point of view, because when they did the replay, Lashley does a big old jump to facilitate it, which is a bit of a shame. Then there's more barricade spots. And then, again, clean as a whistle. I love the finishes on the show. Bold finishes. If you're a good enough babyface, you can stay over, even after you do a clean job. This is the company that kind of formed because people wanted a slightly less, a slightly more accessible American TV version of New Japan Pro Wrestling. That's what people wanted. Like, I love that, but if it was every week and we got like in-ring promos and a few more angles and such. Like people who were raised on that North American pro wrestling, that United States pro wrestling rather, who were like, oh, New Japan. This is great. The big shows are great. It's easy to miss some of these big shows. And I'm not really going to watch all of the road twos, but I love being in the conversation. I love the match quality. What if we had that vibe and those finishes and that framework, episodic US TV, that little bit more accessible, I guess. That's what people wanted all along. And I thought Darby's job on Wednesday, Ospreay and Swerve's jobs tonight, I know there's a risk in defeating both of them, particularly to an ex-WWE guy, if you want to call it like that or frame it like that. However, I vastly prefer this kind of job to another corny finish. I'm
give him the pass out as well.
39 years old. Give him the pass out, yeah.
The finish, I didn't really go for this match, if I'm being brutally honest. I did like Lashley's escalation. I did like how he...
He's like, oh, Christ, I have to really do this now.
Yeah. He... both, I think this was one of them elements where kind of like reality was overlapping with kayfabe a little bit, like Bobby Lashley being this sort of five-tool player. Like, it's not just a guy that pops the top off and looks like that.
Yeah.
It's that he's like a kind of super athlete, and he's got incredible strength, and he's got like way more of a gas tank than a guy his size would traditionally have. It's kind of like how Brian Cage's high spots were once a surprise. Like, that's how you use the Bobby Lashley character in his early days in a company.
Yeah.
TNA did it. WWE eventually got it right upon his return. Like, I saw
bombast stuff.
Yeah, I saw like people like campaigning for like the return of the headband, and I remember that was like kind of a like that aesthetic choice was very much a part of when he was in TNA. It was like MVP's like just unleashed the super athlete. Nobody can stop this guy. He has got everything. And Swerve like finding that out the hard way as the match wore on was like a really nice bit of business. I was a little bit bored on the way. It was a bit of a story of the night. The more we go through this, the more that a lot of matches had that in arena feeling as well. And I think sometimes, you know, as a fan, you're guilty of mirroring.
Go on, impress me. I'm not in the best mood.
Yeah. But I'll
forgive you.
I loved, like, what else are we going to do here? Like, Swerve winning would have been, like, terrible booking. Lashley has been really well positioned from here as it could be the guy tomorrow if you wanted. It's just when the Hurt Syndicate decide to unleash him on a John Moxley. Yeah. I'm with you on the finishes as well. I think, like, is it fair to say that with AEW for the most part, still just about holding on to like the kind of the values they put in finishes when they started, and WWE mostly fixing that? Like, finishes in North American wrestling are in a pretty good place now, aren't they? Like, it's...
There's still a lot to restore my faith. I think some of AEW's have been pretty piss poor of late.
I know you get like the repeated run-ins and
there's
often you get that feeling that like somebody's got to cheat in order for you to get to 3. But people just win and lose now. I think that's become the norm again. And you've got.
I think AEW have done like a bit of a last minute. No, we still want to be AEW because this year has been pretty poor for finishers, in my opinion.
Maybe it's
one of the many problems that they've experienced.
Recency bias on this pay-per-view, but yeah, seeing like lots of winners, losers. The biggest problem for me in AEW is the mid-card, and if you don't really have one, the least you can do is give the illusion of one, and that's what these finishes do. That idea of the meritocracy and the hierarchy. The only way to reestablish that is by having winners and losers, isn't it? It's the only way you get back to that point.
I have to be bold with it as well.
I can't remember where this fell on the card. We should probably mention the champagne celebration.
Oh, Christ, I've just written down the matches here. I love the champagne celebration. So the celebration we've completely missed. I apologize.
I thought about it when you mentioned about the Lashley going through the table.
Yes.
With the extra step they needed for that table.
So they do the much hyped and anticipated title celebration, which might have undermined the Anna Jay program, but I had a great time with it, really, or a very good time with it, so maybe not. Ryan May comes out, said, yeah, everyone wants Mina. Mina comes out. Mariah May basically with her words and her diction says, what did she say again?
Well,
there's a tell in her verbiage.
Yeah, I can't remember what the tell was, but basically she said now that she just like hates everyone, destroys everyone. Yeah. She's become like possessed by the power of the title, basically, and staying on top. And it's like, there's the first point. It's like, so Mina, you're the next one to go.
Yeah.
And
then Mina Shirakawa is in front of Mariah May when she's doing do the champagne, drinking it at the same time. She's in front. She's doing that dance. She's got absolutely great live show charisma. Mina Shirakawa. You agree?
I do agree. I feel like we'll have to get Wilborn's overview of the whole card, but especially this one.
Yes.
Dynamite preview.
Absolutely. There's a bit in the audience when the shoe comes off. The heel looks like Mariah May is going to attack Shirakawa from behind, but Mina Shirakawa, intelligent babyface, ducks. A brawl ensues, and it's Mina Shirakawa who spears Mariah May through a table, and then, accidental blood.
Well, was it?
Oh!
So,
And then she comes up.
Yeah. So you would have bought it as actually, it's like she's booted like a champagne bottle out of Mariah May's hand.
Yes.
It's like the Jimmy and Jay running, I'm spinning you right now, Jesus Christ, there's tables there. They go through these tables, and then Mina Shirakawa having like just in time spotted what Mariah May was telling her with her words before she was about to attack her with her actions, then ultimately shows Mariah May, maybe I was better than you all along, because basically by using that blood that she has arrived upon getting, she's able to mimic Mariah's turn on Toni Storm. Yeah. She rubs her blood on Mariah's face, and you've suddenly got that same way that they did it with the
great visual, great live show charisma.
Best AEW angles ever. You know, that memory of that. And it's almost sort of...
Mina per Fightful probably sticking around for a little bit longer than she has been doing. Yeah. With Stardom's blessing.
This was like very literally in the place of the Toni Storm we all expected. Mina just does it. And I thought this came off really well. The spear, we sort of need to mention this. There was 2 tables set up, and they didn't go through the first one, so the bodies had to keep moving to go through the second. It looked worse for it. It looked more violent for it, didn't it? So I was quite into this. Yeah. They're going to have a great match. They're going to have a great match. Over
match as well. Yeah. Again, this women's division has peaked really highly when they've bothered.
Yeah.
In 2024. Right, main event time. I want to preface this main event by saying 2 things. 1, Jon Moxley isn't merely playing the top guy, the top heel, who's got the belt, which in and of itself is an enormous pressure situation. He isn't merely doing that. He has tasked himself with saving the company in this sort of quasi-real storyline that they are telling. In order to do this, not only does he have to be as good as any top guy before him, otherwise you're going to draw those comparisons, he has to be the very best version of himself, the very best wrestler, realistically, on a roster that has Will Ospreay waiting to be in that spot, you know?
Yeah.
He has to be the best version of himself at a bare minimum. That's point number 1, context number 1. Second bit of context here. I have loathed this storyline, realistically. I hate the idea. Orange Cassidy cuts a promo early in the night to build it up, and he's talking about AEW this, and I'm fighting for AEW. I wouldn't be here for AEW. I get the ick. I get the cringe. I'm sick of it.
And it's bollocks as well. Oh, Jon Moxley, you don't love it.
He does. Come on. He does. And Orange Cassidy also says, it means more to me because I wouldn't be here without AEW. These fans out there, it means absolutely everything to them. It's like, no, it doesn't. I'll turn this crap off eventually. Emotionally, I'm already halfway there at times. It doesn't mean everything to me. My family means everything to me. My work means everything to me. I'm not a worshipper in a cult for 3 initials. Do not frame me like that, the babyface I'm meant to be. So I was in a bit of a mood with Cassidy as I have been. I don't think he's leveled up to this build at all.
No.
I've been hating this mascot stuff. I don't care as much about AEW as they want me to. Quite frankly, I'm 39 years old. I can move on to another interest. I hate how this is geared towards these ultra-tribalist loyalists who will stick with it if it's good or bad through the thick and thin. Did I sign a marriage certificate with All Elite Wrestling? Did I?
You did not.
No, I didn't. Did I, is it my religion? No, it isn't.
I don't know, but when it comes to the good book on AEW, I would turn to you.
The Rise of AEW. Available in the world on Amazon right now.
We didn't even plan that,
Didn't even plan it.
Personal business. Back above the dead man in the charts.
And because I'm like, oh, go on then, save it then. Save AEW. Then I was really into that. It was my favorite promotion ever at one point. I'd like to see it saved. Save it then. And then when Moxie's like, I'm saving it. I'm in the process of saving it, mate. Don't you worry. I'm like, oh, well, I am worried because as you're talking about resets again, and restoring the feeling again. And you're saying, all right, okay, well, it starts now. After this sentence, full stop. And after the full stop, you've got Chris Statlander and Mercedes Money killing each other with cars and then going through plasterboard. I'm thinking, well, that's not the feeling. That's rubbish. That's rubbish. I'm in a mood with this.
Yeah.
And I think Orange Cassidy's been pretty poor in the build. And I just don't like this direction at all. This goddamn match kicks so much ass. So much goddamn ass that I couldn't be anything less than like powerfully impressed by it. It's the match you expect in terms of the layout. It's the execution of it that's just majestic. Moxley needed to he needs to be class every single time. And I think individually in the promos, some of his, imagery's not been great, but he's dialed in to a role that I think is flawed. Like he's locked in to a role that I don't think works. So it's that weird, delicate, is this working, is it not? Is this working? Can it even work? In the ring, this thing worked so goddamn much on the night. Jon Moxley's got a really good, I'm the king of this smug face.
Yeah.
And he just used it to brilliant effect throughout. The general thrust of the story is that he's just killing Orange Cassidy. Orange Cassidy, minimal bollocks, absolutely minimal. He's cut, runs a goddamn razor, he's covered in blood. It's a great visual. Not one of the best blade jobs you'll ever see in your life, but good enough.
Effective for the night.
Effective for the night.
Only blades I needed were the ones on Jon Moxley's fingernails.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I'm getting to that, brother. So he's killing Orange Cassidy. Orange Cassidy's fighting back, but, it's Mox. He's dialed in. He's at his most pissed off. Theoretically at his most powerful, which plays into the brilliant finish where you can get away with, the cheaper or interference-heavy finishes. I was bemoaning 2 minutes ago. At one point, you've seen it. It's like it'll be probably one of the lingering images of this pay-per-view, months and maybe even years from now. He does his back scrape, but he does it. His fingernails are so deep into Orange Cassidy's skin, and he's got blood on the elbows at this point. He's raking that back, and you can see he's making lines in there. And he's covering the blood, and he's got those dimples, hasn't he, Mox?
Yeah.
He's got those dickhead dimples, and he plays with them so wonderfully. He's doing like pile drivers, and because Cassidy's covered in blood, he's leaving just blots on the canvas. This is great stuff. And then Cassidy gets into it. He fights back. He's still surviving in there. They do the slap exchange where it's like CTE. A CTE volley of slaps. It's absolutely incredible. And then when Cassidy's getting a little bit too into it, and these fans are absolutely with him at this point, which is, again, testament to his wonderful in-ring work, because he didn't get a pop before that rubbish main event angle on Dynamite. He didn't even get a pop before the angle was bad. The match was just there with Wheeler Yuta. This match was great. Absolutely great. And then just when Cassidy's getting in, it's like, well, we can't have this. Pac and Claudio and Shafir, who was neutralized by a returning Willow Nightingale.
Oh my God.
So they are warded off by the conglomeration and Willow Nightingale. But because they've cheated first, that allows Orange Cassidy the credibility to go, I'm going to hit you with this briefcase with the belt in, and I'm not going to agonize over the decision. You try to cheat me, I'm going to cheat you. Smash him in the face with the briefcase. We've talked endlessly. Well, it's Darby Allin. It's Darby Allin. Who's going to win? It's Darby Allin. Who's going to win the title? This is all the vehicle for Darby Allin. It's for Darby Allin. It's for Darby Allin. It's the vehicle for Darby Allin. When that referee's about to hit the bloody mat for the third time, I'm like, Orange Cassidy's won then. Was this the near fall of the year?
I was going to say that exactly. I don't know if it's recency bias.
It probably is.
One of my very favourite near falls in recent memory.
The near fall of the year, potentially. I'm thinking, well, Cassidy's won the belt already.
Moxley channeling Roman with the 2.9 as well.
Oh, yeah.
What a kick out to
Moxley has
the pair of them to know that this near fall is going to hit the way it does.
I don't think I don't think this is a 5-star match. I think with a better build, if people are really into this story, if AEW's hotter, if Cassidy can deliver on the promos, this could have been a match like Sue Williams of Voices of Wrestling said a similar thing that I felt in the moment of, oh my God, this match was so special. Imagine caring about it beforehand and how much it would have mattered. I was definitely there with them.
Because that was kind of all that it fell short of against last year's All Out when you cared about Cassidy's international title.
I think this is a better match, really.
I don't, but I can see why.
I think this is a better match. I think I was more impressed with it because that one I was still in a pretty good mood. I mean, the bollocks to Wembley. That's a shame. And I'm kind of losing faith. I'm a bit nihilistic now with AEW, where I'm not really fighting for it anymore, nor should I. It's just a wrestling promotion. It's not a cult. I'm not married to it. I can't remember getting a piss up with AEW, having a great day with my family and my friends, and AEW's just sat there, and I'm looking in AEW's eyes, and I've kissed the AEW. You know, you may kiss the All Elite Wrestling. Did this ever happen? No, it didn't.
On your stretch this analogy for months.
Oh, don't worry, I'm gonna. Did I get the 7-year itch with AEW? Yes. Got the 5-year itch with AEW.
Yeah.
Where I'm thinking, do I want to live with AEW anymore? It's an administrative nightmare, the old divorce ski.
Sometimes it's just easier.
But do I still love AEW deep down? Maybe I do. But I can't remember getting married to it. I can't remember sobbing, like trying to hold back a tear as AEW walked up the aisle. And I went, oh my God, doesn't she look beautiful? She's chosen me. That didn't happen. So if that happened, then maybe I should be obligated to stick with it.
Yeah.
It's my whole life, apparently. It's not. It isn't. This match was incredible. John Moxley was absolutely incredible. That 2.999 kick out was like, well, John Moxley has tasked himself not just with being the top guy for the next, 6 to 12 months. He has to be the savior. He has to be the best. And my God, on this night, he was the best.
He looked
an incredible night for him.
A bit of beef on. He was like looking bigger and leaner all at once when that top came off. And I was like,
he's had a good physique since coming back properly. Yeah. Since the whole green pants, torsos out, shaved head. Mm-hmm. Like, it looks the business.
It does look the business.
He looks the business.
Top guy stuff.
I think he's one of the few people, this is by the by, who looked better with a tuft for holding on to the hair. Like New Japan hair. Like, a lot of people go, just shave it off. I thought, no, keep that for whatever reason. I don't know if it's just your aura right now, it suits you.
Yeah.
But then, because when he first shaved it off, I'm like, all right, you could have kept the tuft, bro.
The tuft.
He looks like the business now.
Yeah.
He looks
finished
so
article of this
hot.
version of himself.
Yeah, he looks so goddamn hot, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Physique, face. And that 2.99 is like, well, you can't just be John Moxley being hard. You kind of have to be the 2022 John Moxley. As good as you were, it's that John Moxley, but the heel version. He's there for me. This is absolutely insane. And then what happens is, after this near fall of the year, you're thinking, well, he hasn't done it now somehow, even though I thought he did. But it's a matter of seconds, and then Wheeler Yuta comes in, hooded, drops Orange Cassidy. This allows Moxley to hit the Death Rider. 1, 2, 3. The fact that they got this near fall was just incredible stuff. I thought I was so impressed by this match, man. I really can't. It really did something to me when I was almost. I wasn't bound and determined not. I was just, again, begrudgingly, get me into it then, on the strength of your work. And I was on the edge of my goddamn seat watching this. I thought it was phenomenal. Joint match of the night for me with Fletcher, Ospreay. Then Christian Cage comes out. I feel like I've talked a lot. I'm giving myself a headache. Could you talk us through the post-match?
Yeah. So, well, I think this is what I
thought it was a few too many beats, too many. Hence why I'm dreading actually recapping it. And I've given Michael Hamflett the hospital pass.
Well, you say hospital pass.
You really liked it.
I liked it. And it sort of fed into the finish as well. I was a big fan of the story that was playing out here.
Bruce Pritchard.
Yeah. Wheeler Yuta with the Psycho knee is carrying on this very nice Roman Reigns Jey Uso thing they've got between the two of them, where like Yuta's doing his part. Like, he's going to take losses and he's going to get his head kicked in sometimes, and you've put your chair around his neck as bait, you absolute bastards. And he's taken on Bryan Danielson's move. Everything he's doing is constantly trying to prove himself to be like Moxley's guy, and this more than ever now. Like, he's the actual difference maker. That plays into a finish, but because he's this little bastard, it basically frees the way for Hangman Page to come out and smash him with a steel chair and then immediately take the ring with John Moxley. So the two of them are facing off.
Yeah, we did touch on this earlier. Sorry, I wanted Hangman Page to turn face there and then.
And I think the whole building did. And I think
that's the point.
Yeah, and I think that's maybe why, like, despite how great Page is in the role, they might be onto a long-standing loser with this heel turn, because the second he was positioned as the guy that could actually do something about it.
To be fair, I've maintained the entire time, beat Hangman Page, beat Hangman Page, beat Hangman Page. It wouldn't feel right if his actions were vindicated by victory, because deep down he is the hero of the tale.
Yeah, and I think the it was like quite a long pause for anything happened while they were staring down, was to allow you to think about that, and was to allow Hangman Page, the character, to think about that. Like, the commentators made a point, like, legacy rivals, the whole deal, what's going to happen here. And then what was actually happening here was that Page was there to distract Jon Moxley for Christian Cage to run out and hit him with his metal contract, like whacks him in the back of the head. There's nobody around, obviously, because Uta's just been taken out by Page, and the rest of the Death Riders are in that brawl with the conglomeration. So all of a sudden, Moxley's under pressure. You can feel that. I know, like, Money in the Bank comparisons, and that's what it is, isn't it, at this point? It's not the thing people like about AEW, but the gimmick does work. There's a swell in the building of, like, I've only just come down from the fact that Orange Cassidy didn't get it done, so maybe I'm in the headspace that Moxley can lose.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, you're looking for a referee. Page is doing right by this Christian Cage, who's kind of got a loose affiliation with. So you're seeing that play out. And then of all the people to stop Christian Cage, who's still got beef with him, Jay White, who runs out. He stops Christian Cage from being able to do anything about it. He obviously kind of like smirks at Hangman Page. There's all that sort of stuff. That allows Jon Moxley to bail. We don't get a cash-in. We don't get a sudden title change. But we do get Jay White being able to build off his win against Hangman by basically positioning himself as the next guy to take on Moxley. And just before we get to the car park where more happens, and it's more car stuff, what I loved about that was it almost was a bit of a bollocking from AEW to say, we are actually booking some challenges here, because their weekly television does a bit of a terrible job of telling you so. But this was an illustration of, these characters, there's 3 or 4 here that have actually got some direction. And when you piece it together, there's a logical reason why all 3 would do these things they're doing. Mm-hmm. Christian Cage and Hook's stuff was just ignored, wasn't it, in the week leading up to Full Gear? He's been kind of in hiding, and maybe this is why we're now seeing this man that is going to pick his moments and pick his spots. Hangman Page and Moxley just showed you a main event down the road if you want to do it.
And their in-ring chemistry is absolutely sublime.
They've got all the sort of credit in the bank for that to just be amazing on the night.
Their in-ring series last year was phenomenal.
Jay White is the one guy who they're kind of asking you to buy rather than you just buying it of your own free will, but at least they are booking him towards that, so you cannot fault the process even if Jay White's
the endeavour.
Yeah, even if Jay White's not that guy. So I think there's quite a lot of ambition to this. Now, the arena came up for all of it. I think they liked this sort of sense of chaos and not another AEW. Like, it was almost like, can AEW brave another show where they just go off the air with, like, sadness?
Yeah.
And I thought it was going to be, they're going to open the case for the first time, there's going to be something about that belt. This was better. Then we cut to the car park.
It's built for the first time you see it around derbies. I don't think you're going to see it for months.
I agree. And why not as well? Hold on to that. The Death Riders are finally getting away. They've shaken off the conglomeration. They're in their van. They're pulling out of the building. And then a car just smashes into them. What the bloody hell's this? They get out of the smashed-in car, commandeer another vehicle. I need to rewatch this again, because I feel like Excalibur was saying something like, who's driving or something like that, as if there's like somebody else working for the Death Riders that we haven't seen on screen.
Shane McMahon.
That's going to be the tease. And then so the Death Riders get away, scream. And then
cheesy.
The camera pans around to see who's crashed into the car. It's Darby Allin, and there was no stuntman apparently. So he's bleeding. He's like, I can't sense like Wilburn can. Come on, you effing cowards. Whatever, you effing and jeffing away. Blood pouring down his face because he's just been in a shoot car wreck. Blood loves it, Darby, doesn't he? Loves it. And that's how the show goes off the air. So there is that sense of, yes, it's another like Derek conclusion, but this is different. It's not the misery of the characters.
Glimmer of hope.
Yeah.
Glimmer of hope. It's one of those, again, right? This is a weird pay-per-view. I kind of went into it, not in the best of places with AEW, and then a begrudging, come on then. You know what? I'm really impressed with this. And I'm won over it all over again in the process of recording this podcast. A strange night, but much like the finish of the pay-per-view, much like that near fall in Orange versus Moxley, the sense that it isn't dead yet. It is not dead yet.
Less space on TV for trash over the next month as well.
Yeah.
Those matches take up a fair amount of time.
Absolutely. So I've gone from thinking, you know what, I'm not done. I can't be. It's my job to critique it. But my emotional investment, it's easier just to say, the power's not coming back. It'll come back when it comes back, and I'll just have fun. They kind of deserve it. They felt so entitled to all of pro wrestling. I said they dropped the E a long time ago, and they took it upon themselves. We'll be the promotion that gives you the blood, the unscripted promos, every style, every wrestler apparently that we can get our hands on. There's an entitlement to pro wrestling that AEW have exhibited over the past however many years. This is almost inevitable. Of like, well, come on, you have to be great then.
Yeah.
All our hopes lie with you, and if you can't do it, then you're going to get the kicking. So maybe that explains why the knives have been out. on top of the broken promises, but it just felt like the sentiment was a little bit toxic around AEW of late. Full Gear, if nothing else, was like, come on, you can do it. You can do this. You can be bold with your finishes. You can make stars, or you can create the conditions for a star to be made, like a Kyle Fletcher. I still believe you can be the best. Show me this consistently. That's where I'm at with Full Gear. That's where I'm at with AEW. And that is the end of this review. But before we go, just to let you know that we'll also be reviewing SmackDown, a landmark edition of SmackDown. He's probably going to be insufferable, but don't let that put you off. Listen to it nonetheless.
I am married to 3 initials.
Indeed. And that might be the schedule for today.
Yeah,
as,
possibly.
A lot of other people need the studio space and the staffing issues and the like. But hopefully normal service will resume tomorrow. If you want to continue the conversation, let us know what you thought of this podcast and indeed Full Gear. You can do so at WhatCulture WWE on X. We'll probably think about setting up a WhatCulture podcast Blue Sky at some point. Because if nothing else, you let us know when the technological gremlins have got to do the system. But whilst you're there on X for now, if you're still hanging on, you can follow Michael Hamflett at
Michael Hamflett.
You can follow me at Sidgwick. Again, follow us all at WhatCulture WWE to keep the conversation going. SmackDown review coming your way imminently. Thank you so much for sticking with us if you have until this point. We can't do this without you. So just thank you for putting up with my misery. See you later.